What's up, everybody? How are we? All right. That other room was way louder. I need y'all to be loud. How are we? All right. You guys, it's unbelievable that I'm up here, and I'm up here with some of the guys that are just absolute mentors and heroes to me in this industry. So help me introduce two of my really good friends and new integrity partners, Brandon Manley and Stephen Davies. All right, guys. Today we're going to be talking about recruiting, travel, and teaching. So we're going to kind of jump into it. We're going to start with Stephen. You guys, I don't think y'all understand how much Stephen and Holly Davies just kicked ass last year. Over 200 direct recruits in their organization last year. All right, Stephen, how long have you been with us now?
24 years.
24 years. All right. Talk to us about recruiting. When and why did you start recruiting?
I'm sorry, somebody whistled and I didn't.
Ears look good on you.
Looks good on me?
Your ears, I think.
Oh, years. I thought you said your ears.
That's what I thought he said.
And I was like, I've never been complimented on my ears before, but I'll take it.
So you've been with us for 24 years. How long after getting started and meeting Andy in his basement was it that you started recruiting, and why did you start recruiting?
So, from the word go. Because the way I looked at it was, I have found something. Why would I punish my buddies by not telling them about it? You know, it always cracks me up when people are like, they hold off on recruiting, like, well, I need to get this figured out first. Or the one I love is, well, you don't understand my friends. My friends need to see that I'm doing this before they'll come on board. Let me tell you something. Well, this is what I like to ask them. I say, let me ask you this. Do you think you're smarter than your friends? And guess what everybody says? Yes.
Yep.
And I said, guess what they would say if I asked that about you? Same. So you're really not that important in your friend circle. Does that make sense? So just start from the word go. Otherwise, you're punishing them. Why would you hold something this good back from them, is the way I looked at it.
Absolutely. I heard Albright tell somebody one time, and I kind of steal it, but he asked somebody that, and they were like, I'm going to wait. He said, but what if you suck? Yeah. Like, what if you suck and you quit?
Right. Exactly.
And so I steal that, and I still use it a lot to this day. People are just taken back. They don't know what to say when you say it. They're like, well, yeah, that makes sense.
And so to realize that confident people, they don't need direct proof of concept. They just need general proof of concept.
Yeah.
Right? So like a successful person, I think about, Robert Averett on Burge's team. He came into this and started recruiting right away because he's been successful at other businesses. So all he needed was general proof of concept. It didn't matter Adam's results or not, didn't factor into his thinking. So the successful people, that's how they think. Underperformers, they're the ones that are going to be like, well, my friends need to see me do this first. It's like, cool, that means you're an underperformer. I'm looking for people that have enough self-confidence that can take general proof of concept.
Absolutely. Now, Brandon, you came in a little bit different situation than Stephen Davies. You were not in the basement of the grandpa's house. Tell us about your journey. How long before you started recruiting, and what really prompted you to start recruiting?
Yeah. So, I did get into it a little bit differently. I married the owner's daughter. And so I remember coming to like an event like this for the first time, and I was just, because Haley's like, yeah, my dad's got, he has a conference this weekend, we got to go. And I'm like, have fun. She's like, no, you coming. And I was like, all right. And then you just walk into it, and it's like, I remember, I think, to be honest with you, me and Haley were sitting up there, and then they just come out and they start like dancing, and like there's Amber. Remember Amber Bowen used to lead the dance, and I was just like, "What is this?" And then I saw all the people, and I was like, "Wait, what do you mean your dad's part of this?" She's like, "No, he owns it." And I was like, "What?" And then so I was kind of a late bloomer when it comes to getting started in this business, because I started dating her in 2014. I didn't start here till I started part time, but I didn't start till 2019. But when I came on, Andy didn't really present that as an option, is not recruiting. And I didn't know any better. I mean, maybe you could call me dumb. I didn't know. I was just like, this is how the business works. You just start recruiting people. So I started recruiting right away. And I started recruiting where I was working. And I recruited a guy named Andy Catone. And I was over at his house, and I shouldn't say I hate it, but I'm not a big WWE fan, and he is, and his cousins were. And then I met his cousin Vinny. And then that's where, so I hired Andy, then I hired Vinny, and then Andy's kind of, he's off doing his thing. He'll be back. And then you got Vinny, who was the first person I ever recruited. And then I started to see the power of overrides. And I was like, and that's what drew me to the business in the first place was I was thinking, hey, I want to build something. Like I always had this thought. I talk about it sometimes what somebody said to me when I graduated from college and got a good job. But I always looked at it as I was building somebody else's thing. So when I saw Andy show me how this works for the 112th time, at that time I was like, that's what I'm looking for, something where I can build out my own organization. And I really don't want all of my success to only be dependent on myself, right? I want other people to help me, and I want to help them get to where they want to go. So it kind of worked simultaneously. So I jumped in right away and started recruiting. I actually was better at recruiting than I was at sales, and I wasn't good at recruiting, so you can imagine how bad I was at sales. I mean, that's just the reality of it. But you just get better and better and better. And you're always looking for people better than you. Like Vinny came out swinging, dude. He was better than me from day one at sales, right? And so we just kind of worked off each other's strengths and weaknesses. We'd be reaching out to people. And this is what goes back to what you say. I mean, like you think you need to know everything before somebody gets into the business with you. I don't think they give a crap how you do in the business. If I'm talking to Burge, I don't care about how Burge is doing. I'm talking to Davies. Burge is doing great. Good job. But like if he's not doing well, if he's just getting started, I'm looking at him, right? I'm looking at Davies. I'm seeing the opportunity more than I am seeing my friend. I see my friend as just kind of the guy who introduced me to it, but I was going somewhere with that, and I don't really remember where I was going.
So people with self-confidence, that's how they look at it. That's why if someone is like, nope, my friends need to see me win first, that's just someone with very low self-confidence.
100%.
Probably hasn't accomplished a lot.
Yeah.
Doesn't make them a bad person. It just know what you've got. That's if that's their stance, then they're probably not going to be your next Brandon Manley.
Yeah, 100%.
And I do know where I was going with that. So
I was just buying you time.
thank you. So
It's a miracle.
So when you think about it, it's like I'm Vinny's upline, and I'm supposed to know everything, right? That's how you're thinking when you're thinking about recruiting everybody. I can't tell you, and if he's in, are you in here, Vinny? He's off seeing someone better than me. So I remember he was like, he would call me all the time and be like, what's this? How does this work? I'm like, dude, I have no clue. And then I'd call him and be like, how does this work? And he'd be like, I have no clue. And it's like, he's still with me today. I'm telling you, like legit, those words came out of my mouth. I have no freaking clue how this works, Vinny. You got to call someone else. And he's still with me to this day. So it's not, it goes back to what we were just saying. I don't want to be a dead horse, but they don't care what you know. It's like, but you know what I did get really good at? I got really good at becoming friends with people like Terry Edwards, like Stephen Davies, like Danny Johnson, Clay Murtis, right? And so we had resources to reach out to. So when I didn't know something, now I'm very quick to admit when I don't know something. And I will point you in the right direction of somebody who knows the answer to that question. And so I just became resourceful in that matter, and we figured it out.
That's it. And I've heard from Clay a lot of times that he wished he had those phone calls recorded between you and Benny when you both first started. And I also wish that. We're going to move over to another integrity partner, Andy Riddle. So we're going to talk to everybody about the difference in recruiting. Can you tell everybody the difference between width versus depth?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to hear people talk about width is profitability and depth is stability. And one thing in this business that I really learned was when I first started, I was really deep. Had two massive legs and not a lot of width. So I was stable. But it's one of those things, too. I just think a lot of people hide what I call hiding in depth. I was riding I found two good guys, and I was kind of like saying, hey, they're doing great, but I'm building this business. But it was really them. They're the magic behind it. So the profitability, and I find it a lot in my team when people get a good leg or two, and they get deep, and they're like, I'm building. But I'm like, are you? Or is that them? Like, who's doing it? And width also gives you credibility with your team, the wider you are, the more credibility you have in depth too. So it's not just profitability. Having width gives you credibility with your team. So if you have no width and you have like 1 or 2 deep legs, you're going to get recognized, you're going to get a little bit, but they're going to know who's actually doing the work there when you get down in deep. But when you put in width, it just shows that you have the ability to really coach people and help people get started and really help people move. And then in depth, so you want to have both. You don't want to just be what we used to call the flamingos, stand on one leg, or you just don't want to be wide either, because that's showing that you don't know how to work in depth either. So you want to have, Andy always talks about the perfect right triangle. So when I draw my team out, I'm always trying to figure out how can where I'm working in width or depth, it depends on where I'm trying to fill that gaps in that right triangle.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. He's always making us draw our teams out in those bubbles, and it really shows you where you're not doing the best job at. Whether if you're really deep or really wide, it kind of drawing that out every day kind of helps you understand where you need to be working. Let's kind of dive forward. So to get into the meat and potatoes here, Steven, when we're talking to people, can you kind of lay out the structure of a recruiting call for people?
Yeah, so what I could cover maybe is where people mess up. They get somebody on the phone and then they just talk to them about how awesome the alliance is and why they should do it and why they should sign up. The feeling of being heard is so close to the feeling of being loved that the average person can't tell the difference. And so if you just let people talk about themselves and they feel heard, they're going to like you. They won't know why they like you, but they'll just know that they like you. And so it's really getting them to talk about them. And then what you're trying to find is what has them in a space where they're open. There's something that's missing in their life or their feelings. What is that missing piece? And then how can we answer that? So when we're recruiting, we talk very little. You get them talking about themselves, they're going to like you. They won't even necessarily know what the business is. They'll just know that they like you. And people get in business with people they like, and figure out the business later.
Yeah.
So that if you're going to put your time on something, it's letting them talk about themselves and making that connection.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of times when Albright does these live recruiting calls, people are like, he's on the phone with them. They get super excited. They're in. They don't even know what the hell they're in for, but they're in. And he'll pass it off to one of us, and we'll get on the phone with them, and they'll be like, "So what exactly are we doing?" And so then we get to walk it through the basics. But you're right. It's making people get in the business with people they like, and a lot of times it's people who remind them of themselves. Brandon, for you. You've been killing it virtual and kind of pioneering new ways for us. What are you doing technology-wise to help with recruiting?
Go high level. I think we talk about that later as far as my recruiting strategies. But I utilize Go High Level a lot just because it has automations built in, and you can't remember everything. I mean, just automating things makes it a little bit easier to keep track of people. And also, some of y'all know Debbie, Woody, and me. It allows us to kind of track our notes. So she's like, hey, connect, let's say she recruits somebody. Hey, connect with this person. Okay, cool. We'll still have a conversation, but it'll be a short conversation because it can go high level. All the notes are in there. And I think you guys got
we are
high level too. But I mean, really any CRM, like before that, we were using something called Monday.com. I think Spencer's actually still using Monday. And, but they all work. I mean, it's just, but I'll tell you, let me go back to one thing you said, because technology does not, one of the mistakes I made when I started using technology was stopping to draw out my group. And so I remember when y'all came to the office, I think we did something in Raleigh, and Andy was at the office, and he was just looking around, and he's like, you need a big whiteboard going across this board. And I was like, okay. He's like, because you need to draw out your group every single day. And what that does is even though you got the technology, maybe you don't look at your Go High Level, but I can't walk out of my office without looking at that wall, which immediately reminds me to call someone. So as much as I use technology, I would say still drawing, Andy's diligent about drawing out your group on a daily, weekly basis. And I think that's still very helpful.
Yeah, 100%. I made the mistake one time. He told us to draw our board out I drew it out. He came back like 2 days later. He's like, hey, I need you to redraw the board. I was like, but it's the same. He's like, how the hell is it still the same? What are you doing? And so doing every day is really something that's kind of helped us. Andy, with your team, what lead sources are y'all using for recruiting? What does that look like for you guys?
We do it depends on the person. For me personally, we do a lot of ZipRecruiter. We recently hired a Philippine person through President's Club to call the license list. And then we also do paid ads on social media. So most of the stuff that we do is through President's Club. But I have Jason and Olga they got the Bolivians calling the license list. John Beverly has put in a ton of width. He's one of the agency managers here, about to go regional manager. And last month he was 17 wide, and all 17 came from TikTok.
Wow.
So I'm not much of a dancer, so I'm not on TikTok, but apparently it works for him. You know what I mean? And the thing, I watch John's stuff, and it's like, it sounds bad, I guess, but it's like, his TikToks are not like impressive in the sense like he's not in a studio. He's just taking his phone and like talks.
Yeah.
And it's those things, but he does it every day, all the time. And he has if you get with him, he'll give you some of the tips he does, because he's like, you got to catch her in the first 10 seconds and things that he does there. But it's just the consistency of doing those things too has really helped him bring on a lot of width. So what Andy's always taught us is nothing's perfect. I think a lot of times people are looking for the perfect recruiting tool.
Yeah.
And if there was one, we'd all be doing it. They all work a little bit, and it's the ones that you do, and just knowing they all work a little bit and consistency of doing them brings in the width.
Nice. Yeah. I can't even count the number of different strategies we use over the 3 years that I've been here, and I'm sure there's going to be 100 new ones coming. So putting the ego to the side and trying something new is huge. Stephen, we're going to come back to you kind of to follow up on your very first question. When you're talking with your team and your agents, how do you have the conversation, and how soon do you have the conversation with them about starting to build their team?
So, I talk about building all the time. I talk about building more than I talk about selling. We have really good sales training for everybody we hire, but as the leader, your job is to talk about building.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things like just being relentless in how you talk about it. Eventually, they catch it. If they don't catch it, that's fine too. I'm still gonna talk about building, because the last thing I'd want is for one of my people to be in a leveraged spot where they're a high income earner from selling, but have no team, right? Like, I'd be terrified if I was making $700,000 all self-driven. I would be terrified. So I don't want them in that leverage position. So I just talk about building all the time.
Yeah. I feel a lot of us overcomplicate it. Maybe we overthink it. I was watching some old videos with Albright, and I encourage you guys to explore through the Alliance University. There's some gold on there video-wise. But he was doing live recruiting, and one of the things he said to the person who was just focused on selling was like, hey, how would you feel about me helping you grow your business while you're growing your sales? Is that something you'd be open to? Just a simple question, right? So that's one of the things that I've taken away and learned. I think it's just we overthink it, right? We overstress it.
Yeah, so like I'm flying to San Diego, not next week, but the week after. I was already going to Detroit Monday. We brought on a new guy in width in San Diego like last week. And so I just said, hey, man, think of the top 5 sharpest, coolest guys that you would want to be in business with. And he brings up 5 guys. And so now we're here.
Nice.
Now I'm going to San Diego. So there's no magic phrase,
Yeah.
and keep it small and bite size for folks, like something specific people can do. Who's the top 5 sharpest people you know? I need you to give me a list of names. That's so vague it'll never get done.
Yeah. That was a good transition, because we're going to talk about travel next. Riddle, we're going to start with you. How long into your career was it before you traveled first to a recruit, and how important has that been for the growth of your business?
Yeah, so I got licensed in June of 2007, and I was very part-time. I went full-time in November of 2007. And then in my second conference, it was kind of where I got motivated to start really building the business. And back then, I guess, we had a sales meeting in Jacksonville that I would go to every week, and it was packed. There was probably 30, 40 people in that meeting, and in my mind was Jacksonville's tapped out, so I have to go somewhere else. So I went to Tampa. Now, I did zero research. There may have been a bigger team in Tampa. I don't know. But in our office, no one was going to Tampa, so it just made sense to me to go to Tampa. And we started going to Tampa. So I started going to Tampa every week. And I remember Andy telling me, he's like, if you're going to start recruiting and building this thing, you need to give it 120 days to see results. He's going to say 90 days to see results, 120 days to see the money start coming in. And if you're not going to do that and not going to commit to it consistently doing that, don't even go, because it's going to be a waste of your time. So February of 2008, I started going to Tampa every single week, and it was one of those things it sucks at the beginning, but I'm a big fan of starting a hotspot where you live or somewhere, because you learn so much about trying to build your own meeting. And it's one of the things that's like, there's a lot of pros and cons, like where Andy talked about writing the 8 Steps book, where it's really good, but then we stopped doing the 8 Steps. It's kind of like when the Alliance started doing hotspots in all these cities, it's like the people in those cities never learned how to build a hotspot. And one of the things I learned is when you go to a meeting and you're the only one that shows up, you either quit or you get a little bit of drive to get more people there next time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, it took me 6 meetings in a row with no one showing up, but I finally started getting people to show up. But it's like, it's funny because it's like, oh, I didn't talk to the person at the hotel. I didn't talk to my Uber driver. I didn't talk to this. When you go to a meeting that you're paying for the room and no one's there, all of a sudden you start talking to everybody.
Yeah.
And it teaches you how to build a hotspot. When it's not relying on someone else to bring people to the meetings. If I go do a meeting in Atlanta, I can just show up because I know James is going to bring a bunch of people to the meeting, or Steven's guys are going to come in. But when you start your own meeting and you're the only one showing up once or twice, it's like, I need to start recruiting seriously. It's like changing this. And I'm just a big fan of that because I learned so much when I started traveling and started doing a hotspot. And then when you leave that city and you build up a city and you go to another city, it starts all over again. Yeah. It's like it's your job to do it. And it's crazy when you have to start something and you have to build it from the ground up. How many people that you start recruiting that you normally would just walk by?
Yeah, 100%. I remember one time Clay and I, we flew all the way to Washington State for a guy who told us he'd have 20 people, guaranteed 20 people in a room. We get there and it's me, Clay, and him, and nobody else. And what I learned from that day, and that Andy kind of lit us up about it, was you can't rely on them to bring the people. You need to encourage it, but you need to be working 3 to 4 different legs every time you travel, because odds are that 20 people ain't going to show up.
The best is when you show up there and they're picking you up at the airport and they don't even show up at the airport. You know what I mean? Like,
I have not been there yet.
But then you just get an Uber driver and you're like, well, I'm back at it. I got to recruit this guy because I have no one else to do anything. So if I don't get him to come to the meeting, it's just no
you.
one there. So I'm going to really be working this Uber driver. So.
Yeah, I had that happen in Portland, Oregon. Fortunately, I'd recruited 2 other people, and they did show up because the guy that was going to be the killer didn't even show up. Didn't show up at the airport. Ghosted me. So, and that was back, children, in the taxi cab days.
What's that?
It was the 1900s. Back in the 1900s, they were all yellow. But these 2 people do show up, and the lady leaves like halfway through the presentation, and the guy looks at his watch and says, "You can finish if you want." That's a long red-eye flight back after that.
What's crazy though is we see your success. We see, all 3 of your success, and from outside we look in and we think, man, they've done it. It's easy for them. But what we forget is that you sat in a conference room 6 weeks in a row by yourself, just sitting there like this.
I just started a hotspot in Jacksonville again. I think we had 4 people at the first one. I'm like, oh, gosh. I was like, I'm so impressed with my ability to bring people to a meeting. I got 4. I've been doing this 18 years, and I can get 4 people to come to my meeting. This is awesome.
Well, that's a 400% increase.
That's true.
That looks great on a graph.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. Brandon, I think it's only fair that we come back to you with this question. As someone who again, is kind of pioneering the technology and the virtual side for us, how important is it for you to still travel in person versus just meeting somebody on Zoom?
Yeah, there's no replacement to going in person. It's just like when you're on a Zoom call and you hear some things, it's not like you can just kind of like stop and ask them questions about that. Have you ever noticed, like when Andy's talking to somebody, they say something that most people would just kind of keep on moving. He's like, whoa, wait, you said this. Tell me more about that. That is done in person so much better. He says shaking hands and kissing babies, right? Like that's what he always says. And that's when he's talking about travel. And I think no matter if you're doing it, I mean, right, when COVID happened, a lot of things kind of started going more virtual, but I don't think there's any substitute. And Davies says something, and I don't want to steal it from you, but you say when you Zoom with somebody, you show people that you love them, or you like them. When you go and see them, you show them that you love them. And so I don't think there's ever going to be a replacement for going in person. It might be less convenient. I mean, I do like my bed a lot more than most of these hotel bedrooms, but maybe I can start staying where Riddle stays soon. Yeah, I mean, I think that it's important to get out there and to meet your people, and then just the opportunities that come from that, right? When you go, if I'm coming to see you, or if I'm going to see Davies, and I'm meeting him, I'm going to see who he knows in that area. Like he just said, he's got the guy in San Diego. If he was doing that on Zoom, he's got a lot higher likelihood of his guy in San Diego pushing these guys, being on their behinds to get them to come meet Steven versus doing a Zoom call at 8 o'clock at night. Hey, 3 of my buddies can't make it, 1 can.
Yeah.
See, because he showed that he's investing in the guy in San Diego. He's taking time away from his family to go where it's convenient for the other guy, inconvenient for him. So it shows his recruit that he's the real deal. You know what I mean? Versus the guy who's just like, yeah, let's jump on a Zoom.
Yeah.
It's a lot different. And I don't know that I need to convince you of that. I hope you understand that. Like going to see people, I know it's not convenient. It's never going to be convenient. But all the guys that I've learned from, like this is the beauty of me coming in. And sorry that you guys didn't start when I did, because you guys did all the hard work. You guys showed me the blueprint. Hey, this is what we do. And part of that was traveling to see your people. So when I saw, when you want what they have, are you willing to do what they're doing? That's the question, right? Because if you want to be in their position making the type of money, I'm going to do whatever they say they're doing.
Yeah.
And here's another thing. Anytime I can get around these guys, I do. So selfishly, I'm traveling for myself to get around them, but I also have other people because I want other people to get around them. And here's one more thing about the in-person. And the in-person side, like going to meetings and stuff like that, I get to introduce them to people that I may not be as similar to them as. For example, let's say that you're a single parent. I have no kids and I'm married. We are not connecting on that, right? But there's going to be someone else in that room. Maybe I connect them with the Megan Wood. And then they have that connection. See, they think of my situation, well, yeah, you don't have kids and you're married, so you got help. And then I'm dead in the water if I'm the only one there. But if I have somebody like a Megan Wood there, well, she's doing it at a pretty damn high level.
Yes.
So then you get to introduce them.
Plus, you can have a better conversation when you know everybody's wearing pants.
Yeah, that helps.
You can have a better conversation when you know everybody's wearing pants.
So
you don't know that on Zoom.
And as you travel, Brendan brought it up in the manager meeting. When I stay at Marriott's, I get a free. It's actually free. I get free butler service every Marriott I stay in.
Let's go.
And it's because I stay in Marriott's over 100 nights a year. And the reason I stay in 100 nights a year is because I travel to my guys. And I learned that from Steven, because Steven taught me about the Delta points and all the stuff. So me and Steven have like competitions who can have the most Delta points and Marriott points. But with that, you get cool.
Pull out our apps. And
So one of the things that I continue to tell people when they ask me a question about recruiting is, a lot of you guys are really good at sales and you're getting into recruiting, but recruiting and selling is really a lot the same. I asked Brandon that question and I couldn't help but think when Rojas was up here talking, it kind of made me think about it. He told a story about his mom sacrificing to get across the board for his graduation. She could have done it Zoom, but would he be telling the story here today if it was Zoom? It meant that much more that she was able to be there for him in that big day, right? It's just a big difference. Showing up for people is huge. It's the little things. A lot of people don't have somebody show up for them. So when you're growing and you're teaching somebody that you care about them, and they're doing the things, the least you can do is be there and show up and do what you say you're going to do. So, you guys, and I'll let each one of you go. We got 10 minutes left. I got 3 questions left.
Can I slide one
yeah,
thing
please.
in on just what Riddle said? Realize that we traveled crappy and stayed crappy before we get to travel like we travel now and stay like we stay now. We have stayed in some terrible places and had middle seats in the bathroom on the plane. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got to do that grind.
Yeah, for sure. So we're speaking about traveling. How do we know when to travel? Like, who's the ideal candidate that says, hey, that person's worth traveling? What does that look like for you, Stephen?
So when I meet the person, if they check the boxes, right, like they've accomplished something in their life is not a dysfunctional mess. They don't tell me about all their drama right away, right? I'm just looking for what checks the boxes, and if they check the boxes, I'm willing to go see them. It's no different than in sales, right? If you make a sale and they buy 2 final expense policies, $180 a month, $152 a month, without batting an eye, you need to move in with those people and get over, because that's who they know. Does that make sense? So same deal. When I find an ideal recruit, I'll jump on a plane because and by the way, you'll learn more about how to find ideal recruits by flying and finding out they're not ideal recruits.
Yeah, that's for sure.
When they pick you up at the airport and like the bottom of their car is like a garbage can, not the ideal recruit. They're a mess. Does that make sense? So I'm just listening for, I want someone that's relatively free of dysfunction and someone that's got a dream. If I've got that, I'll go see him.
Nice. Coming back to you, Riddle, map it out for us. So you found the guy Davies just described. What are you looking for? You're getting ready to go. What are you making sure you have in place to go when you're going to travel somebody? Is it just one person? What are you doing?
So if Davies is the guy, or like he's the guy who's talking about he's going to see in San Diego, one is where he talked about getting the 5 sharpest guys, huge to have. You're getting the guy there to start working for you and start building that team there for you just by the people they know. But on top of that, it's what else are you doing in that city while you're there? Are you reaching out to everyone you know in San Diego in addition to? Are you running a ZipRecruiter ad in San Diego? Are you running a Craigslist ad? Are you doing everything you can in San Diego to maximize the time you're there? So you're going for that one guy, and he feels special because you're going for him and trying to build his team. But if you can talk to 10 other people and while you're out there, and then you're just multiplying what you're doing there, you're trying to get as many legs as you can get in one city at a time, because it's all profit. You're going there anyways. So Steven's going to be flying to San Diego, however much that's going to cost him to fly out there and do it. If he's seen that one guy, or that one guy and his 5 guys, or 10 guys on top of that, he's just multiplying what he's doing. So when you make that commitment to go, and usually, I don't know if Steven did this or not, but when he goes, he made the commitment to go. That's when I start putting the ads out like crazy.
Okay.
It's when I find that good guy, I recruit nationwide, but when I find a good one, I'll zone in on their city and try to get with like crazy through them and not through them, through ads and stuff. And it's just you're trying to, and you're doing as much as you can, because if you go, you're spending the same amount of money if you go for one, or you're going, and it's the same cost if you have 100 there. It's the same cost. So you're just doing as many things as you can do once you're zeroing in on that city.
Yeah, the reason we had such bad meetings early is because we were dumb back then. Does that make sense? Like, the stuff he's saying that's absolutely exactly what I did.
So the one thing that I've learned when it comes to traveling is, and Albright continues to hammer us about this, is don't just travel for one person, right? It's whether it's multiple legs or multiple locations as you're traveling. Can you touch on that, about how many places you try to strategically map out when you're looking at that?
Yeah, so like basically we've got a nationwide net. Once we find a fire, then and I'm going to go, then we redirect resources there to make sure that all the things he just said happen. And by the way, I remembered that I've got a buddy from high school that lives in San Diego that's a fairly successful contractor.
Yeah.
So it's like all of a sudden all those parts start to come into play, but it wasn't like, I mean, there are some places like Vegas that I try to make sure I at least have one agent so I can tax deductibly travel as often as I'd like, but there's really not that much strategery nationwide. It's just, where does the fire come, and then pour resources to the fire.
Perfect. Brandon, coming back to you. All right, you found your guy. You've done everything we've talked about. You've made it there. What is your call to action when you're there? What is it that you're hoping to accomplish when you get there?
Well, I guess it depends on what you've done before you get there, you know. But when you're meeting with somebody, I mean, my real goal is to get to know them on a deeper level than I know them over the phone, right? That's kind of my main thing. Like, I want to know about their family. I want to know about their kids. I want to know how they grew up. Those type of things, because I'm making that connection with the person. And I know if I make that connection with the person, they start trusting me. And then I can ask them to do things. And I think a big thing that you can do, it's easier to do in person too, is setting expectations. Like, what are your expectations versus what are their expectations? Kind of figuring out those things, right? So if I find out that somebody, you know, again, like I would encourage you, if you're going to see someone, again, have multiple legs, but also who can they get there? And then, one other thing that I don't think we hit on, but like, do your people know where you're going so that they can recruit there too? That's
huge. That's
how you work additional legs, right? But I would say, like, the biggest things that I'm trying to accomplish with them is to get to know them, to set expectations. Kind of, you want to almost create a blueprint for them of getting started, what success will look like if they do this, if they commit to that. Get commitments from them while you're there in person, and then hold them accountable to that when you're not there, right? Because you're not going to be there with that person 24/7, but just make sure that they know where things are. You know, make sure they know what resources. I tell people, my job, because I used to put a lot of pressure on myself to get somebody up and selling. And if they're not ready, willing, and able, you ain't going to get them up and selling. You know, so I tell people my job is to give you the coaching, the training, and the tools and the resources to be successful. Here's what I need you to do. And so when you set those expectations with people, now when you leave, you hold them to those expectations. But I think you just really, if I put it into like one thing, when you're meeting with somebody, I've learned this from Andy, you're trying to get them to think bigger.
Yeah.
Right? That, like, when you're sitting down at dinner with them, you're trying to get them to think bigger, right? It's like, Andy's taught me some funny things. It's like, if I'm sitting there with a husband and wife, I might ask the wife some questions that's going to kind of tee me up to set expectations with him, right? Like, hey, do you like that he's doing $5K a month? Is that paying the bills? So if he could do 20, you wouldn't mind if it took more time away from him? No? Well, Joe, think we got something to work. You know, like, this is psychology that Andy's taught me. But what I'm really trying to do is if I'm sitting down, and that's another key, is if you can get the spouse there too, dynamite.
Huge.
As I've had it to where the spouse will give them more of a kick in the A than I will, you know? And so, but it's really, I think that's, if I'm summarizing what I'm trying to do is get them to think bigger.
And then they can't blame their spouse later.
Yeah.
I'd work more, but she don't want me leaving the house a whole lot. Like, you get all the cards on the table.
Yeah, it's huge if you can't get the spouse there, it's huge to know where the spouse sits on things and thinks about things, because, you know, if you're getting around the fire and you're getting your guy around the fire and you're talking for the whole day you're there, getting him excited, but then he goes home and he spends the next 2 days of his partner or their partner saying the exact opposite, it's a losing battle. So you've got to be able to have this conversation with people and ask real questions with people. You can't just, when recruiting, I think the biggest mistake for me that I see a lot of people make is they try to be way too uptight and way too corporately professional when talking with their agents instead of getting to know their agents, because you're going to be hopefully lifelong buddies in this industry together, partners in this industry together. So if you don't know the person on a real level, then your success is just going to be a very, very slow rise. So my last question, Riddle, will come back to you, is you're there, you're doing all this. Andy talks a lot about making money while you're making money while you're making money. What does that look like for you when you're somewhere?
Going back to when Stephen was talking about the guy that sells, you know what I mean? I think you love the people that sell, but they're wasting so much money making opportunities because they're so good at what they do and they're not duplicating it. And it's funny to me because I'll take that great salesperson and put 10 recruits around them where I'll make more money, and they're just missing that opportunity. One of our top sales guys, Josh, on virtual sales, he was when he first got going with virtual sales, he wrote $30,000 his first month, and I was like, dude, but you should start recruiting because you're so good at it. All they can do is they could watch you on that Zoom every day, and you just multiply what it is. Thanks for teaching all my new guys how to do what you're doing. You know what I mean? But he's not capitalized on it. So that's how you making money while you're making money, in the sense that as you're doing stuff, you want to have as many legs and width and depth that you can possibly do. The more you have, the more multiplication you can put into anything you do. So it's like coming to these meetings or coming to your hot spots. If you're the only one going there, you're just making money. But the more people you get there, the more legs you get there, that's where you're multiplying. If you're going to do something, just don't do it alone in this business. Get as many people with you in everything that you're doing, because you're there to make money, and the more times you have, more people you have there, the more multiplication you get from it.
Awesome. Well, you guys, that is our time. If y'all will give it up for the 3 new integrity partners.